Welcome back to the channel, Shoe Fanatics. Thank you for joining me again. It's been a long time since I did a review, and it's not because I didn't want to do a review. It's not because I don't love you guys. Just nothing that Jordan Brand has been putting out lately has really been floating my boat. But today I got something special coming to us in this nice spackled cement splatter box. It's a gray box with silver cement splatter all over it. It's not your typical Jordan 4 box, as you can see, but something a little different, something special. And I told you guys I love a special box. I'm sure you guys do too. On the top, you have Flight with that signature Flight logo font on it with the Jumpman in the middle. And that Jumpman is that color. That's a real interesting color to me. I'm not really a fan of this color because it looks like a bodily function, if you know what I mean. That is called pale yellow, I believe. And speaking of pale yellow, size tag reads Air Jordan 4 Retro SE, Photon Dust, Pale Vanilla. Flipping to the top, there's that pale yellow bodily function colored interior, but they know it's all good. We love Jordan Brand for their thought process behind everything. Cement splatter paper on the inside. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm beyond pleased to present to you the Air Jordan 4 Craft. If I'm not mistaken, this was actually the second Jordan 4 to be released this year in 2023, the first of which being the oil green or the seafoam, which I really tried to get my hands on. But I also really wanted this shoe. And this is not just some kind of consolation prize. I really did want this shoe. I want to talk about this shoe. But to be honest, now that I have them in hand, we'll get to that a little bit later. But first, let's talk about the shoe. Flipping up to the bottom, you have the standard Air Jordan 4 traction pad with the herringbone pattern. Again, that pale yellow color there with maybe a sail and a gray colorway. We'll talk more about gray later on, but nothing too different about that. Flipping up to the midsole. The midsole, again, is that dark gray with the sail on it. Starting here, all around the toe cap, you have pretty much a long-haired suede. Now, as I always say, I'm not the materials guy, but in my mind, this is a suede. And the reason why it leads me to believe it's a suede is because of the overall theme of the shoe being craft. I'll talk more about that again in a little bit. Coming up to the upper of the shoe, you have a nice quality leather material on the upper of the shoe on the side, as well as the wings that hold the lace holes in place, and on the lateral side of the shoe, right at the ankle line. On the medial side of the shoe, you will notice that this is not a regular leather, but a cracked leather, which I'll also get into that a little bit later. On the rear of the shoe, the back tab, you have this kind of translucent brownish, grayish color, which I actually really like. I think this is a nice touch, except this one is really, really hard. So if you have a tendency to get your Achilles heel cut up with this part of the shoe, buyer beware. And again, there's that pale yellow color Jumpman on the back tab. That pale yellow colorway also makes its way onto the eye stays, as well as the Jumpman on the tongue itself. The shoe does come with a standard gray cotton lace or Photon Dust with no additional lace swaps available. So as far as the Jordan 4 silhouette is concerned, that's pretty typical. Now here are some of the differences that make this a craft shoe. And before we go any further, you may ask yourself, what makes this a craft shoe? And what exactly is craft? Well, I'm glad you asked that because I'm not entirely sure, except to say that what I believe is that the craft line of shoes is one that Jordan Brand developed to kind of separate themselves from your typical line of each silhouette. As of right now, I believe there has been a Jordan 1, a Jordan 2 coming out, a Jordan 4, and a Jordan 5 craft. So if you're into the craft and maybe the whole Luxe series, this is definitely a pickup for you. So for example, as I mentioned, this is not your standard Jordan 4 with the way things are put together. The craft line typically likes to take different materials, be it leather, suede, cracked leather, and mesh them together to kind of give a nice, really handcrafted, thought-provoking, maybe luxurious feel that separates itself from the other silhouettes. There may also be some big differences that are far departure from the silhouette. As an example, there is no netting on this particular shoe. If you take a look at your standard Air Jordan 4, most, if not all, of the shoes have netting on both the side, on the lateral and medial, as well as here at the beginning of the actual tongue. As you may very well notice, there is in fact a lack of a netting on both lateral and medial suede here. This leather, which I assume is nice, real thick quality leather, but it's a little stiff for my liking. You also have cracked leather here, as well as on the medial side, as I mentioned earlier, with this suede, pale yellow suede on the back of the tongue. Speaking of the back of the tongue, as per usual, there is the Air Jordan that you can have flipped upside down, and you can read that Air Jordan, no difference there. Now again, Jordan Brand is trying to do something a little bit different with their craft line by making it feel luxurious and add little tidbits here and there. So as you can see, in addition to the suede toe cap, there's actually a stitching line that's present right here, and right here on the shoe. And again, here's your standard Air Jordan 4, which is obviously devoid of any stitching at that same location. Although this women's starfish took its inspiration from a Birkin bag, you'll see that there is an extra stitching there which is kind of, luxury, and lets you know that Jordan Brand really put some thought into the luxury of the shoe. And it's my belief that they try to do the same thing here as well as here to give you that extra stitch to make you feel like the shoe is a lot more luxurious. And trust me, I've searched high and low and could not get an explanation for what this patch actually symbolizes. For all that being said, I'm really excited to have this shoe while simultaneously being a little bit disappointed in this particular shoe. And the reason being is because although I have an idea that the actual better quality, the actual better leather quality is probably gonna feel a little stiffer. I mean, I think thicker leather probably goes hand in hand with a little bit better quality, but the shoe kind of is a little bit too stiff for my liking. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't break the shoe in, you can't wear it enough to where it start to loosen up on you, start to feel really good. And maybe we got spoiled by some of the lesser quality, which we have mistaken for better quality shoes. But again, this is just a little bit too stiff for my liking, but with time, I think it'll probably grow on me, especially with enough wears. With that also being said, one thing that happens when you have so many shoes, you start to run into a redundancy issue. Clearly, these are not the same shade of gray, but then one must ask yourself, how many shades of gray shoes do you actually need? The cool gray, I think, is a staple for most collectors if you're able to have them. And now this is really a great shoe. As a matter of fact, now that I look at it, this shoe kind of looks like you took this shoe, maybe dipped it in bleach or acid washed it or something, and that's what you come up with. The black has faded, the yellow on the inside of the tongue has turned into this. I mean, you kind of get what I'm getting at. Like, you just kind of run into an issue where you're gonna have so many of the same pair of shoes and the same kind of color family. You kind of got to pick and choose. Not to mention, if I'm not mistaken, there's also a light iron ore women's shoe that I think is either debuted to come out this summer or sometime this year. So, I mean, it's really close to this, if I'm not mistaken, or just a really pale version of this. So you kind of, again, run into that redundancy issue. It's up to you as a consumer to pick which ones you really want. Jordan 4s have kind of supplanted the Air Jordan 1 as the hype beast shoe. It's kind of cemented itself at this point as the reseller shoe. I mean, I think this shoe holds its value the most and the longest over time. And so this shoe, I think, is somewhere around $350 range or so in my size. And is it worth it? That's entirely up to you. As much as the shoe looks nice and the story behind it is supposed to be a luxury craft shoe, I am not necessarily sure that I'm in love with the shoe enough to tell you that you had to go run out and buy it right this second. So don't get me wrong. There may be a lace swap that I'm gonna try to do at the end of this video that may get my goat and maybe try to get me up and running to really loving this shoe. But right now, in this current iteration, I think I have too much of the same thing to really fall in love with this shoe. But hopefully this video will sway you one way or the other to kind of get you to maybe make a decision whether or not you want to have the shoe. And that's what I'm here for. But all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and go outside, put these guys on feet, give you a couple lace swap options. You be the judge. Write down in the comments, let me know, do the laces make or break this shoe? Or just is it a no-go, or was it a must cop for you? Either way. At the end of the day, thank you guys for sticking in there with me for my first review back in over 30 days or so. I appreciate you guys. If this is your first time here, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Until the next one, I've been Jay Shoe Fanatic, and I'm out of here. Black yellow. Oh, the original cut. There it absolutely is. I might like it better than the 2020 version. Those on white, and I had to have it.